Hi, I'm Becca.
Hi, I'm Whitney. Welcome to the Homework Hotline.
Do you need homework help? Well, that's why we're here. We'll help you work through the problems so that you can better understand how to get to the answer.
We're here every Tuesday and Wednesday from 4:30 to 5:30. We love to talk to you and help you with your homework, so call us at 720-424-1666. Calling in your question allows us to more thoroughly help you.
You can watch our show in several different ways. You can tune into Comcast Channel 22, go to livestream.com and search for Homework Hotline, or watch us on YouTube by searching for DPS TV Homework Hotline.
The Homework Hotline is sponsored by Emily Griffith High School. I teach language arts at Emily Griffith, and I've been there for 3 years.
I teach math at Emily Griffith, and I've been teaching there now for 2 years.
We also have some of our Emily Griffith High School students helping us out. Antonio and Luigi swap days as our social media host, and Lily is our trivia master. She will ask a new trivia question at the top of each show. So Lily, tell us about yourself and what question we have for today.
Hi guys, I am secretly the trivia queen of the universe, but I go by Lily, so nobody knows who I really am. At the beginning of each show, I will ask you, the audience, a question, and before I tell it at the end of the show, I want to hear the answer from you. And so the question can be on any subject, but today is a natural science question. At the first person to call in with the correct answer will win a prize. So today's trivia question is, what color is the polar bear's fur? I will answer that at the end of the show.
All right.
Seems like an easy answer, but you're going to have to think about it a little bit.
Yeah, it might be trickier than you think. Well, I'd like to give you our contact information so that you can call in and answer for the trivia question or get your homework questions answered. Our phone number you might have seen earlier on the bottom of our screen, it's 720-424-1666. But you can also get in contact with us via social media. On Facebook at EG Homework and Twitter at EG Homework. You could also text us at 970-680-3771, or you can email us at homework@emilygriffith.edu. So on your screen right now are all the different ways that you can get in contact with us. I say write those all down, put them on your fridge. Next time you have a homework question, just send it away to us. But those are all of your options for today, so get a hold of us. We'll be here until 5:30 to answer those questions.
All right, so we'll check in with Luigi now. Tell us a little bit about himself and if we have any questions on our social media board today.
As you guys heard, I'm Luigi, and I'm a senior this year at Emily Griffith. My head's full of stuff and panging with senioritis, but I'll help you. We do have a social media question, as you heard. I will handle social media for you guys, and it says, in the scarlet letter, Dimsdale keeps placing his hand over his heart. Why?
All right, so a couple of different thinkings behind this, because in the book, Dimsdale covers his heart throughout, but the meaning tends to change. So you can probably assume and infer that since Hester Prynne has to wear the scarlet letter over her heart, and Dimsdale is just as guilty in the sin as she is, but he's not discovered as being complicit, he covers up, his heart basically to show that he is kind of in cahoots with Hester, that he has committed the same sin. But he doesn't have to wear a giant A sewn onto all of his clothes, and so it's just kind of a symbolic gesture. But then throughout, it changes. He is found out by other characters in the story, and towards the end, we know that Pearl even asks why, or she knows why her brother's wearing this letter, and says it's the same reason that the minister keeps his hand over his heart. And so it is a symbolic penance almost. And we know throughout the Scarlet Letter, Dimsdale does show lots of acts of contrition in order to repent for his sin. And this is just one that he almost symbolically does to show that he is with Hester throughout her suffering, even though it's not as public. And then towards the end, he ends up, actually coming to terms with this sin. He's not so much of a coward anymore. He's come back as a strong man, and even though he ends up dying in the end, he dies without his hand covering his heart because now all is known. And so once he's able to take his hand away, it's symbolically representing that he no longer has to carry that burden. So a little bit drawn out, but that's kind of the whole background of the hand over the heart thing.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go back to Luigi and get some more questions.
Also, spoilers much? Now I know
I
he
know.
dies.
Right, sorry.
Anyways, we now have a math question. No
Okay.
spoilers in math.
Yeah.
But it says, solve the following inequality and write the answer in interval notation, and that would be the absolute value of 2x plus 1 plus 3 is greater than or equal to 7. So if you could help us out with that.
Okay. I'm not going to get into too much about what absolute value means, just because I could go on and on and on. So I'm answering this question with the assumption that at least you've got a basic background understanding of absolute value at this point. So if you go ahead to my screen, I will kind of show you how to go about doing this. What we want to do first is get whatever's inside of those absolute value bars. We want to get that part by itself first. And so in order to do that, we're going to start by subtracting 3 from both sides. At this point then, we have our absolute value quantity by itself. And so we can write our inequality that way. And then one thing with absolute values is that, or at least inequality, absolute values, is that when we have the absolute value, we can take it away and rewrite it this way. Now the reason is, what we're talking about with absolute value is we're talking about the distance from 0. And so if what we're saying, the distance from 0 of whatever quantity is inside there, it's greater than or equal to 4. Well, that means that whatever's in there is also going to be less than or equal to -4. Let me give you kind of a mini example here. If I had the absolute value of just x, and I say that that's greater than 5, well, that means that x could be anything that's greater than 5, so like that, or x could be anything less than -5, because the absolute value, for example, the absolute value of -6 is just 6. So that's going to make this equation true, or inequality true as well. So again, I can go into more of why later if you really have more questions on it, but yeah. So then at this point, what we want to do is get x by itself. And when you're solving inequalities like this, not only are we doing it to both sides of the equation, we're going to do it to all 3 parts of our inequality. So I did it to all 3. So then on the left-hand side, I end up having -5. In the middle, now I only have just 2x. And then on the right-hand side, I have 3. Now my last step is going to be to divide everything by 2 to get that x by itself. So you end up having, and I'm just going to leave it as a fraction, -5/2 is greater than or equal to x, which is greater than or equal to 3/2. Now we solved it, but this isn't interval notation. We were asked to get this problem into interval notation. Basically what that does is, let's say I were talking about the interval between, let's say I said x is greater than 1 and x is greater than 1 and x is less than -1. One way I could write that is like this. Now, when you have those brackets, what that means is greater than or less than and greater than. And then when you use these brackets around it, it means greater than or equal to and less than or equal to. So if I'm writing my answer here, my x is going to be greater than or equal, less than or equal to this -5/2 and greater than or equal to 3/2. And so we're going to use the square-looking brackets or the rectangular-looking brackets versus the parentheses. But this is interval notation, what I was just showing you here. So we solved it at this point, and then at this point, the end, that's when we put it in interval notation. That's what that is. So hopefully that helps. If you do have some more questions, though, about interval notation or absolute value, because those are kind of some complicated concepts, let us know, and I'm happy to answer a little bit more, but I just wanted to at least get you through answering that problem. So hopefully that helped. thanks for your question again.
Great, and it's always great when you can send in those questions completely, like that one was, so we know exactly what we need to help you with. And if you can't get it in that way, make sure that you call us, because then we can really help you out.
Absolutely. All right, we have a caller, is that right?
I think so.
Okay. So, hello?
Hello.
Are you there?
Yeah, hello.
Hi, what's
Hi.
your question?
I have an English question, and I was wondering what the prepositions in this sentence was.
Okay.
The restaurant owner, Mark Gruber, began his career in the culinary arts at age 15, when he left school, working at an Italian restaurant, or at Italian restaurant gourmet, Italian gourmet, which was owned by his uncle, end quote.
Okay, and you're looking for the prepositional phrases?
Yeah.
Okay,
Or
so
just the preposition,
you're a little quiet. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can barely hear you here, but I think I got the sentence. So if we can cut to my screen, I'll show you the sentence here. And are you watching on television?
Yeah.
Good, okay, so is that your sentence up there?
Mhm.
Good, all right, so I've put the sentence, and then I've given you a little graph here of prepositions. And one way to remember prepositions, it was the way I was taught, anything a squirrel can do is a preposition. And so they can go above, they can go before, they can go on top of, around, under, underneath, through. It's not limited to anything a squirrel can do, but it kind of shows you how these words work. And so what's interesting about your sentence is, and I'll scroll back down here, I've bolded where your prepositions are. So there's actually 4 prepositional phrases in your sentence. And that's not really uncommon, but it's a little weird, but you have a long sentence, so it makes sense. So notice in the culinary arts, at age 15, at Italian gourmet, and by his uncle are all going to be prepositional phrases. And then I'll scroll up so you can see this list again. And this is not a complete list of prepositions, but it's a pretty good list. And so just remember, if a squirrel can do it, it's probably a preposition. So check out that list. And I hope that that helps you with your question.
Okay, yeah, it does. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you.
I was just remembering, I think my 5th grade teacher taught me a song
Yeah.
for prepositional phrases. It's like at, above, I don't remember.
Yeah, there is a song. Yeah, I remember that too.
Help me remember them. That was, for me, what got me through it anyways.
Yeah,
But.
for sure.
All right, well, we're going to take a break and look at a commercial from one of our sponsors, Emily Griffith Technical College.
Denver, Colorado, one of the top 10 fastest growing cities in the U.S.
We need workers now.
So what are you waiting for?
Don't let this pass you by.
So what are you going to do? You need to make a difference in your life.
They need workers right now.
And Emily Griffith Technical College is where you can start your career path now.
The term career path is heard all over Emily Griffith campus all the time, and I think it's a very good description. It's a pathway into something better and more diverse, something better, more diverse and more technical. The manufacturing technology program provides that framework, that broad overview of manufacturing that allows those pathways to happen. The pathways are endless. You just need to get in there, find that pathway. I'll help you get there. The type of student I want to get into the manufacturing technology program at Emily Griffith is simply the people who want to make stuff out of other stuff. They have that inquisitive nature to say, how does something work? How does something get made? What's the source? What are the processes that go into it? That's the kind of person I want in the program.
My name is Yvonne Grantham, and I'm the General Manager of Intertech Medical. Intertech Medical currently has a desire to continue to grow. We'd like to be able to double our size in the next 10 to 12 years. We are right now at a kind of a limit for the number of personnel we have for the amount of work we're doing. The very basic employee that we need is a press operator, and that person is primarily responsible for looking at products as they're produced off the injection molding press, visually inspecting them, packaging them.
Every day I hear from manufacturers who say, where are the entry-level people that I look for? I don't know where they are. I don't know where they're coming from. Well, we're trying to provide that conduit.
We need a ton of employees. We need them from top to bottom. RK Mechanical's been around for about 51 years. We do mechanical contracting, structural steel, energy, water conditioning, and mechanical service. There's huge opportunities. We've got great benefits, great training. We do a lot of manufacturing, a lot of field construction. You can come in from the ground level and work your way all the way to the top. You know, most guys that come in off the street may start by, you know, just doing general cleanup. If you have the knowledge and what you learned at school, you'd come in and you'd start manufacturing right away.
I think there are a lot of opportunities for people that they don't understand actually exist, and that's why programs like our manufacturing technology program exists. We believe in that principle. The very important point about this whole thing is we graduate students through Emily Griffith debt-free. So I have one last question. What are you waiting for?
Yeah, what are you waiting for?
Come on, get online, sign up, get your career and your life started now.
Welcome back. We will check back in with Luigi now and see if we have any other social media questions.
We have another question that came in through Facebook. Looks like a math question, but unfortunately it has letters in it. Who did that? Who put letters in
letters
math?
in math?
Was it the Greeks? I blame the Greeks.
A genius.
Cool.
But if you're Greek, I love you. It says, how do you add or subtract polynomials? And then they give us an example which says 4x minus 2x squared minus 7xy, and that's in parentheses. That's a one expression, plus 2x squared plus 5xy, and that's the other polynomial. And how do we add those, Becca? Could you
Gotcha. I definitely can help you. Big thing in math, reoccurring theme over and over and over again. Doesn't matter if you're in kindergarten or if you're in high school. One big theme in math is the fact that you can only put together and you can only combine like terms. And this might drive you crazy just because if you don't know what like terms mean, you're probably hearing this from your teacher a lot. Like terms mean terms that have the same ending or the same label in a sense. I'm going to highlight terms that have the same ending in the same color. So this 4x, I'm looking throughout the rest of this polynomial. I don't see any other term that has just 1x at the end of it. So that's the only one there. Then we have negative 2x squared. So that means in the rest of my thing, I'm looking for anything else that says x squared. So this one also says x squared. Then this last one here, minus 7xy. I need to also find something that has xy on the end. And so this is going to be it. Now this is something I suggest doing if this is a topic that you're struggling with. One of the things that I've seen work really well is actually getting out a set of highlighters and coloring in or highlighting each term that has the same ending or each thing that is alike. And then it makes it a lot easier when you actually do have to put them together. So we'll start with this first one, this 4x. You can see there's nothing else highlighted in yellow. So there's nothing else that is a like term as 4x. So that's going to stay as 4x. Then the next one we're looking at is negative 2x squared. And you can see that there is one other term in this polynomial that has an x squared at the end, and that's 2x squared. And so when we put negative 2x squared plus 2x squared, we actually just get 0x squared. And so we don't need to write anything if it ends up being 0. They end up canceling each other or going away. So none of those. And then the last one is this negative 7xy. Well, negative 7xy also has another term that has a similar ending, 5xy. And so we're going to put those two together to get negative 2xy. And so what you're doing, and then in the end, is we put together things with like terms and we keep things separate that don't have like terms, and then anything that cancels, they go away. And so then this is our final answer. It's just when we simplify it, that's what we get. but use those highlighters. I've noticed that when students are struggling with something like this, get highlighters out, a set of them out, and actually color code things that have the same ending. That's what like terms means. So there you have it. Hopefully that helped. The one thing that we wanted to do was get you our contact information again, in case you missed it at the beginning of the show. Just wanted to throw that back up there so you can see it. 720-424-1666. You can get us on social media at EG Homework. Text us at 970-680-3771 or email us at homework@emilygriffith.edu. So there's that information for you again in case you didn't get it.
Lots of ways to contact us. And remember, we do have a trivia question. You call in, answer it correctly, you get a prize.
That is true.
So all the more reason to call in.
Absolutely. Well, let's go get another question from Luigi.
I've got another social media question came in through Facebook. So a lot of these questions seem to come in through Facebook. It makes me happy. No one's using social media to like have their brain cells die.
Yeah.
But in the book Thief, why does Liesel refuse to bathe after losing her brother and mother, and then again after losing everybody on Himmel Street?
All right. So, The Book Thief, it's a really great book, and it's one of those books that the film actually did a really good job. It wasn't one of those that you're going, oh, it didn't meet my expectations. It was really good. However, this is one of those details that is not in the movie. So, if you think, well, I'm supposed to read The Book Thief, I'll just watch the movie, I hear it's really good, just know you're still going to miss some things because the film is only about 2 hours and it's going to take you a lot longer than 2 hours to read the book. So one of the reasons that Liesel refuses to bathe is kind of like the old saying. I don't know if it's around anymore, but it used to be if you would meet somebody famous or if you got, had your hand shaked by somebody you really liked, you might say, oh, I'll never wash my hand again. That's the exact same thinking behind this, but it's a little bit of a sadder purpose in The Book Thief. So our main character, Liesel, chooses not to bathe after these tragic events because it actually makes her feel more connected to the people that she lost. For example, at the end, the city has been destroyed and she's actually covered in ash. And some of that ash is actually, the burnt remains of her friends and her neighbors. And so not bathing, not washing that off keeps her connected to those people that she lost. And the same thing with her mother and brother. She hadn't bathed since she lost them and she still felt that connection to them. She didn't want to wash away the memories. So somewhat of a metaphor, but also very understandable, realistic too.
Gotcha. All right, well, we're going to go to watch a Back to Basics, which, if you are unfamiliar, Back to Basics are when Whitney and we will record pre-recorded segments about topics that often cause trouble or struggles in academics in school, and things that may be a little bit more basic, maybe something that you might have even forgotten. And I did one on measures of central tendencies, so check it out. Welcome to Back to Basics. Today we're going to learn about measures of central tendency. Central tendency kind of sounds complicated, but all that is finding the mean, median, mode, range, and maybe some outliers when it comes to a set of data. This is a middle school concept that sometimes is really confusing, and the reason why is because these words starting all with the same letter makes it kind of difficult to remember which is which. The mean is always going to be the average value of all of your data, and I'll show you how to calculate all of these as well in a minute. The median is the middle, and I remember this one because I think of when I'm driving in the road and I think of the median in the road is always in the middle of the road. And so that's how I remember that the median is the middle number of our set of data. The mode, and I kind of go with the way that this sound, mode, is the number that occurs the most. So the mode occurs the most. It's the number that happens the most in our list. The range is, I kind of always think of, well, how wide do our numbers range, or what is the range of this? It's the difference between the largest and the smallest values in our list. And then any outliers are numbers that are going to be outside of our data or outside the main, basically a number that is furthest from your data or something that's way different than anything else. An outlier or like an outsider, think of an outsider. So it's something that is way different than the rest. I'm going to show you an example of how to calculate all of these things using this set of data. If you're doing the mean, like I said, it's the average. You are adding all of these numbers up and then you divide by how many numbers there are. So when you add all of these numbers up, you're going to get 85. So just 12 plus 11 plus 14 plus 8 and so on. You get 85. And then that 85, we want to divide it by how many numbers there are. So there are 8 numbers in this data set. And our average, when you actually end up dividing this, you get this number here. And this is our average or our mean. And you'll sometimes hear it being called average or mean. So that's the 10.625. Now the median or the middle number, this is where we have to put our numbers in order, our data in order from least to greatest. And I always get in the habit of even doing this first just because you need the numbers in order for median and you pretty much need them in order for mode. And then it also helps you calculate range and any outliers too. It helps you see it a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and put this data in order. And you'll notice that I'm going to be marking off the numbers as I write them. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I know which numbers I've already written and which ones I haven't gotten to yet. And that also helps me make sure that I haven't missed anything. And as you can see, look, I missed the 8. This really helps with that. It helps with making sure that you don't miss anything. And I have lastly 14 and 14. The other thing, and this is a big trick, this big hint, is count your numbers after you've done it to make sure that you have the same amount of numbers in your original list that you do in your list whenever you put it in order. The biggest mistakes I see whenever people are putting their numbers in order is they forget a number, and then that messes up the whole thing. So once your numbers are in order, then we can go and we can start finding which one is the middle number. So I'm going to just kind of mark off ones as I count just so that I can work my way to the middle. Now, this set of data is kind of special because if I were to go the whole way to the middle, I'm not really actually at a number. So what that means is that there are 2 numbers in the middle. And with the 2 numbers in the middle, what we have to do is find the average of those. And when we find the average, that's going to be our median. So the number halfway in between the 11 and 12. What that'll work out is going to be 11.5. So that's our middle or our median. Mode is something that occurs the most. Something that people don't know all the time is that you can have more than one mode. You also might not have a mode. If we had a list of all different numbers, there wouldn't be a mode because there wouldn't be some number that occurs the most. In this case, you can see that I have 11, that happens twice. I have 12, that happens twice. And I have 14, that happens twice. So actually, in this case, I've got 3 modes, 11, 12, and 14, because these numbers are occurring in my list the most often. Range is going to be the difference between the greatest and the least value. So if your list is in order, easy. All you have to do is take your last number and then subtract the first number or the smallest number, and that's your range. So our range is 11. Any outliers are going to be numbers that are far away from your data set. What you can do is you can look at your mean, median, mode, and you can see that these are all very close to, they're higher numbers, around the number 10. So if you have a number that is very far away from that, then that's going to be an outlier. In this case, I'd say that the number 3 is an outlier because it's far away from the rest. But all of these processes you can do with just one list of numbers, and they're basically measuring where most of our data is. And it gives us kind of a number to generalize what our data says. So hopefully this helped you find and figure out how to find central tendency, and also maybe some tricks to help you tell the difference between these three mean, median, modes, these big M's.
Welcome back. We love doing these back to basics mini lessons for you. So if you have any ideas for things we can do, make sure you let us know.
Absolutely. In the meantime, I think we have a caller.
I think so too.
Are you there?
Hello.
Hi, we can barely hear you.
Okay. I have a math question.
Okay.
And I understand that there's a sequence to the power of I, but I wanted to know how does it go, and how does it work in equations?
Okay.
So a sequence to the power of I.
I think I know what you're asking, and let me go for it. And if I am off base, then help me understand your question a little bit better, but I think I got you. And I'm sorry because I can't hear you all that well, but let me know.
That's okay.
All right, so if you go to my screen, are you watching, by the way?
Yeah.
Perfect, okay. So if you go to my screen, I'm going to go with what I think you're asking me here. What I is it's an imaginary number. It's an imaginary number that actually equals the square root of -1. But we use I just because it's a lot easier to write, and I'm sure there are other reasons as well. But if we take I to powers, so I to the first power, I to the second power, I to the third power, I to the fourth, and so on, there's a pretty specific pattern to it. And I'll show you that, and I think that's where we're going with it. So if we have I squared, it's going to be the square root of -1 squared, and squaring something undoes a square root. And so I squared is going to be equal to -1. And then, hang on one second. So I is just that. It's just I. And then I squared is equal to -1. And then I to the third power is the same thing as I to the first power times I squared, which I to the first power is just I, and I squared is -1. So really when we simplify it, it's -I. Then I to the fourth power is I squared times I squared, which I squared again is -1. And so -1 times -1, we get +1. Then I to the fifth power is going to be considered I squared times I, which -1 times -1 times I, which just -1 times -1 is +1, and then +1 times I is just going to be I. And you can kind of see the pattern is going to continue. And I'm going to highlight what they equal so you can kind of see the sequence that we're going through. So it's I, -1, -I, 1. And then it repeats itself. I, -1, -I, and then 1. And so that's kind of, that's the sequence I think that you're referring to.
Yeah, that looks familiar for sure.
Good. And what happens then from there is that this pattern continues. And so the idea of that is that you can really, based on the pattern, you can find what I to any power is going to equal. So if I said something like I to the 37th power, well, you're just going to find the 37th number in the sequence, or the 37th figure in the sequence. And if you just follow your pattern, you can find that. And so that's the idea of doing powers of I. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for calling that in. I appreciate you working with me on figuring that out as we went.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks. All right, if you're watching at home and you're having a hard time hearing, our callers will try to get that fixed so that you can see what they're asking, but I think we're trying to answer the question as best as we can. So.
Yeah, and it seems like the callers can hear us relatively well. It's just probably you guys as viewers are having issues hearing, but so still call in, please. We still love your calls.
And you can see all the questions we're answering on our Facebook page and on our Twitter page too, so you can always chime in there. Speaking of that, Luigi, do we have another Facebook question?
Exactly, another Facebook question. And I just wanted to say, imaginary numbers, those might seem like a burden now, but as a math nerd, I find they actually come in handy, like, eventually. But what was not included in the Declaration of Independence? A, grievances or reasons for breaking up with Britain. B, the right to abolish a government that disregards our unalienable rights. C, rights for women and slaves. Or D, colonies are now free and independent states.
Well, we often in high school study the Declaration of Independence as a historical document. And so this isn't just a history question. It's in your American Lit textbook probably. And unfortunately, I would love to say all of those things are covered. And if Thomas Jefferson had his way, they would have been. But he got edited and was forced to revise. And so unfortunately, it does leave out giving rights to women, and not just slaves, but anyone that was not a white land-owning man. Now, I will say that one of the most famous lines in the Declaration could be interpreted to include these people. It says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." A modern translation would say, this includes all people. Back then, we would say men, meaning, you know, humankind. However, they just meant white land-owning men. And so, and I have to add that caveat of landowners, because you really didn't have a voice unless you owned property. And unfortunately, back at this time, property could be people that you owned, including your wife and kids. And so Thomas Jefferson did have a rough draft. He did have a first draft where he did talk about slavery because it made sense. He's talking about how King George is basically treating American settlers as slaves, that King George created and sustained the slave trade, and that this was a cruel war against human nature. So there is some of that language still in the document. There's allusions to the original version. But unfortunately, women still weren't seen as equal in the United States or given the right to vote until almost 200 years later, about 150 years later. And so it took a while for that. But they did get more rights as time went on. So those would be the two individuals, two groups of people that would have been left out of the Declaration of Independence. But I would still argue that a more modern translation, all people being created equal, includes all of us.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah. Definitely. Well, let's take a little break while we wait for your calls. So get those in. Let's take get a message from one of our sponsors, Emily Griffith Technical College, another message from them to learn about some of their programs.
Video production and editing
program is designed to teach you every aspect of video production.
This is a hands-on environment. Students learn the tools needed to gain entry-level employment in the video production industry. There are no general education classes required to graduate.
Emily Griffith Technical College Video Production and Editing program
provides students with the tools, inspiration, understanding,
and passion to pursue their goal in a career in video production.
Healthcare is going to continue to grow as a field, and pharmacy technicians are going to continue to be an integral part of patient care.
It can open a lot of doors for me as far as getting my foot in the door in the health industry.
Part of patient safety is having qualified personnel in the pharmacy environment. Employers will be looking for that as one of the qualifications. Once a student begins the program, you are enrolled in the hybrid portion of the course where you do online work and then come in and do lab work in the classroom. That portion of the program takes around 5 to 6 months. A requirement of the program is to complete 2 clinicals, and one in an institutional setting, and then the second clinical would be more in a retail environment.
It is more affordable than every other school that I've looked into as far as pharmacy tech programs go. And you can also get different grants to come here. I was actually able to get a grant for this program, and so that's really what made me decide on Emily Griffiths.
Once you've completed the coursework and both of your clinical settings, then the student has completed our program and is now ready to go and sit for the national certification test.
One of my goals in life is to be able to help people in some way, so that's why I chose it.
The reason that I chose medical billing and coding, I was actually laid off from my last job. I'm a single mother of 3, and it's really important that I find a job that allows me to make a substantial amount of money and have security.
I chose medical transcription because I get to work from home and it pays very well. I don't have to commute anywhere and I love it.
Medical billing and coding actually is a growing industry despite the economy. You're getting trained to have a keen eye to go back through all these reports and pick out those things. You're picking out exactly what needs to be coded so that doctors can be reimbursed. Medical billing and coding is like a puzzle. You gotta put all the pieces together, and I like that challenge.
I have to wear the headphones to listen to what the doctor is dictating. And then when I'm done editing it, I send it back to them, and it's part of their permanent medical record. Oh, I'm helping doctors, and I'm helping the American public. Even though I'm not in the room with people, I'm definitely there with them. I chose Emily Griffith because it's a really good school.
I love that it's an urban campus. I love that it's affordable.
They pushed us to go out and get a job.
They have a little bit of everything to help you get further in your education. I love Emily Griffith. I really do.
Welcome back. Just another look at all of the great things that Emily Griffith Technical College has to offer.
Mm-hmm. And that is a lot of them. Mm-hmm. We do. We have lots of options for sure. Well, one of the things that we do on Homework Hotline is we keep up with our Facebook page. We're pretty involved with it. We like to post things on there that are really interesting. So not only can you ask your questions via Facebook, but you can learn some things via Facebook. So let's go to Luigi and see what he has to say about what we have on our Facebook page currently.
We actually have a really cool thing on our Facebook today. We have a video from PBS, which you guys should watch. I grew up on PBS, and look how I turned out. Anyways, so it's a video on the hatchet that was made during the Stone Age, so a stone axe. And apparently the design was so good that it did not change for 1 million years. And that's not figurative, that's literal. That literally 1 million years, it was so good that we didn't replace it. Think about Apple. The products there, they change, what, every couple of years?
Yeah.
And this was a hand axe that didn't change for 1 million years. So when your grandfather's out there saying, in my day they made things that lasted, he's not wrong.
Yeah, it's true.
I like the title to it. It says, if it ain't broke,
yeah,
don't fix it.
So it's all about tools, Stone Age tools. Mm-hmm. And there were lots of different things like that we actually, use a modification of now. Mm-hmm. This scraper thing that would be made out of rock or bone would be used to scrape off flesh from an animal to clean it, to get the hair and stuff away so you could use the hide and use the meat. And sometimes they would put it onto a handle, and they actually used a term that I was not familiar with, and it was haft, H-A-F-T, but that just basically means the handle of a knife or an axe or a spear. And so, right, and so sometimes they would just hold on to this scraper with their hand, but to make it more effective, they could attach it to a handle.
Oh, makes sense. Mm-hmm. And they made a lot of things with bone, mm-hmm. too, and I would assume partially because it's very durable.
Yeah.
They used to also make needles, they used to make flutes, they used to make all kinds of jewelry, all kinds of things out of bone, but I would assume that part of the reason is because it's very durable.
Yeah, and using all the parts of the animal that they may have killed.
True, mm-hmm. That is true too. Archaeologists have actually found bone needles that are 20,000 years old,
yeah.
Or more, so that they're not only just a little bit, they're durable. Mm-hmm. They are lasting for 20,000 years. Yeah. So really interesting how similar, it must have worked well considering we still use so many of these technologies that were used so long ago. It's really interesting to see how that is played. So check out our Facebook page if you'd like to know a little bit more about that and any more interesting things that you might never have heard about ever before. So check out our Facebook page.
Definitely. And if you like to sew and make things, you know, if you've ever had a bent needle, that maybe bone would be best.
That is true.
So I think we have a phone call, so hopefully we can hear him a little bit better now. So are you there?
Hello?
Hi, are you there?
Yes, hi.
Okay.
Oh, we can barely hear
Barely
you.
hear you.
Should I yell?
That's better. Don't yell, but the sound just got better.
Okay.
So what's your name and where are you calling from?
Yes, hello. I'm, Mickey,
Okay.
and I'm calling from home.
Great. What is your question?
I actually was wondering about punctuation use.
Okay.
You see, when I write, I still write long sentences, and it always gets to the point where I'm wondering, should I end this sentence or continue it with, say, a semicolon? So
Okay.
that sort of seems sloppy to me.
All right. So
I'm
the
wondering-
question is about semicolons. When to use them to break up long sentences that are not run-on sentences, hopefully, but show independent clauses, maybe just go on for a long time. So I'm going to use one of my favorite resources, which is the Oatmeal, and they make cartoons about funny things, especially grammar. So if we can cut to my screen, I have their poster about semicolon use up here, and I love them because they use really funny sentences in order to show you how to use punctuation correctly. So you have this party gorilla, and it says, using a semicolon isn't hard, semicolon. I once saw a party gorilla do it. And so it tells you the point of a semicolon, which I've talked about a little bit here. It connects to independent clauses. You can connect to independent sentences. She works on her own. You don't have to use a capital letter after the semicolon. You don't have to use a conjunction. You just throw her in the middle of two independent clauses, and she will save the run-on sentence. So what you want to do with a semicolon is make sure that your two independent clauses have enough in common that it makes sense to make them one sentence with a semicolon in between. So are you watching at home right now?
Yes, I am.
Good. So you can see the image up here, and it says the ice cream truck man drove by my house today, semicolon. He had big hairy knuckles. So what it tells you there is that you eliminate the pause between the two statements and you don't use a conjunction. So you want to make sure that your two independent clauses can stand alone. They do have a complete meaning, but they can exist if they are attached to each other too, and maybe it enhances their meaning. Don't use it with a conjunction, as it's telling you here, because then you use a comma with your conjunction. So it says when you want to form a bond between two statements, two independent clauses, when they are very related or maybe they even contrast each other, that's when you want to use that semicolon, okay? Notice this sentence here, I fought a bear and won. Also, I never kissed plague rats on the mouth. Those two sentences have nothing to do with each other, so you would not want to have a semicolon in between them because they do not really relate. But you want to use it when they do relate, okay? So notice that it will make you have a moderate pause in your writing. If you're reading it out loud, you would just have a moderate pause, but you definitely want to use semicolons when you have two independent clauses that really could go together, and you don't need to have an and or a but or a or, any conjunction in there to emphasize your point. Does that help you out?
Yes, it does.
These resources that are available to you online, and if you have a specific question about a sentence where you're using a semicolon, make sure you call in or send that in and I can help you out, okay?
All right, thank you.
Great, thank you for calling.
I love the semicolon. As soon as I learned how to use it, it became
Oh yeah, just use them all over the place. They're great.
All right, well, we're going to go watch another Back to Basics. This time it's going to be one of Whitney's, and it is on than and then.
Today's Back to Basics lesson is on the difference between than with an A and then with an E. A lot of people accidentally interchange these words, use them in the wrong place, and so I'm going to show you one way to remember how to use them correctly. Than with an A is kind of a math term. It's the greater than or less than, and if you can remember that these kind of look like sideways A's, maybe that will help you to remember to use than when you're comparing. Then is telling you when something, and again, they are spelled very similarly, then, when. So we'll look at these examples here, and hopefully it can help you to choose the right then or than whenever you're writing. We went to the store. It's telling us when they went to the store, so that would be then with an E. I'd rather have carrots than green beans. You're comparing two things, like in math, and so we'd use than with an A. We went to the store and then we went home. It's telling us when something occurred, so it's with the E. Other than stray cats, we never had pets. It's a comparison between not having pets and having stray cats as pets. So that is the one with the A. And monkeys are better than rabbits. It's not telling us when rabbits, it's comparing monkeys and rabbits, so it's the word with the A, it's than. So hopefully these little tips will help you remember when to use then and when to use than. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you'll remember those little easy steps to differentiate between the word than and the word then. So we're gonna look at another math question, I think, now on our social media board. So let's get ready for that one.
Oh, so much math. I'm getting tired of math. Just kidding. I never get tired of math.
Wrong.
So it says, how does cross multiplication work? And if you guys will notice, it came in the last 22 minutes. Someone sent this during the show. You guys should
Thank
start doing
you.
that.
Good.
But
Thanks, Gordon.
how does cross multiplication work? If I had x over 4, so x divided by 4, equal to 16 divided by x, how would I solve for x? Becca?
Okay, so this would be a quick one. This would be good. When you cross multiply, so go ahead and look to my screen. I set up the equation as was asked. When you cross multiply, what you do is you write a brand new equation so that you don't have to deal with fractions anymore. And so what you're doing is you're going to cross multiply. We're going to multiply across. So we go x times x, and we're going to write that on the bottom here, x times x equals, and then the other side of the equation is going to come from the other part. So 4 times 16. So 4 times 16. Now from here, what we want to do is simplify and then get x by itself. So x times x is the same thing as x squared, and 4 times 16 is 64. Then to undo the square, or get x by itself, we're going to square root both sides. And so that means that x is going to equal 8 and negative 8. So we've got two answers here, but that's how you do it. So cross multiplying to solve. It's a great way to solve proportions, meaning a fraction equals a fraction. But yeah, that's how it works. So one thing that I wanted to give you guys, or repeat to you, is the trivia question, just so you have a chance to answer that. The question, remember from Queen Lily, was, what color is a polar bear's fur? So if you have an answer to that, call us in. We have about 10 more minutes, 6 more minutes, 7, something like that, but hurry up. Call the number on the bottom of the screen at 720-424-1666 if you've got an answer for that question. And there is a prize involved, so do that.
Yeah, running out of time.
Do we have more social media questions?
Yeah, one more quick one that I can answer.
It's an English question, and it says, I'm trying to show the possession of an object, but the object ends in an S. So I don't know where to put the apostrophe. And so they gave us an example, and it says, I accidentally ate my boss, and they're wondering where to put the apostrophe, yogurt at work. So could you help us out with that?
This is simple. If a word ends in S and you're trying to show possession, and it's a singular noun, just throw an apostrophe at the end. Just put an apostrophe at the end. Now, it would not be wrong if you'd put an apostrophe and an additional S, but the additional S is redundant. It's not needed. So any word that ends in S, boss, Thomas, Taus, bus, anything like that, you could just put an apostrophe after the word to show possession. Easy. All right, great. So I think we have officially run out of time for an answer to our trivia question. another day, another show without a winner, unfortunately.
All right, well, let's see what our answer is.
So the trivia question again was, what color is a polar bear's fur? And that's transparent, so really doesn't have a color.
But I thought it was white.
Yeah, it looks white, but it gets more in depth, I guess, scientifically.
I guess if you look up close.
Yeah,
probably.
like I guess the water is supposed
Well,
to
I
be
think it's so
color.
weird because their skin is black. So I would have thought that, you know, maybe their skin was really pale and that would make sense. I have a little white dog, and I was looking at her today and thinking, I wonder if her hair is translucent or if I'm just seeing white, but I don't know.
Well, it's actually really cool.
What do you think?
So first off, it's not only transparent, they're actually also hollow. So if you think about it, it's like you got a little hair and it's like tunneled out. And the reason for this is because it keeps them warm. It's really good at like keeping them warm. And as a matter of fact, if you look at like polar bears with an infrared camera, which is very common for like scientists to do because they're out and they're observing and they can't necessarily, you know, see it because it's against the white, and so they'll try to look at it with an infrared camera. You can barely see a polar bear with an infrared camera because it's so good at keeping the heat in. But so that's the reason why it's transparent and hollow. But the reason it looks white is because the light will actually go in and it will bounce around, and it bounces around to the point that it looks white when it comes back out. So not only is there essentially there's almost no light coming off of the bear. There's no light, there's no like cold hitting the bear. There's nothing really like hitting it and making it cold again. So it's really, really efficient.
That's
just
cool.
goes to show how good nature is.
Yeah.
That it impresses me every time how amazing nature is and how well adapted to the harsh conditions of our world.
Think of like the jacket that you wear, given that you're in Colorado, I'm sure you have a jacket. And if you put it on, you don't really like, you wouldn't imagine that some engineer, because apparently I guess they're jacket engineers, sits back and says, I'm gonna hollow out this jacket, the hairs in this jacket, so that it's super warm, so warm to the point that you can't even be seen on an infrared camera. No, we get fleece.
Amazing, yeah.
That's
Wow.
That's what we get.
So polar bears get all of this and we get fleece.
Yeah.
Great. Sounds fair.
So that should humble you. Think about that. You're a human. You're the apex of evolution as far as we know, and your jacket isn't as good as a polar bear's fur. So.
And if you're thinking, well, I know, let's just go get a bunch of polar bear fur and we'll have invisibility cloaks and the warmest jackets in the world. Well, don't do that, because we could lose the majority of polar bears by 2050. And I did the math. I'd be almost 70 years old. And I really don't want to live in a world without polar bears. I don't want our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids to not be able to know that these things exist, even if you don't get to see one up close.
And if you did get to see one up close, you would realize just how enormous these things are. If you've ever gone to the zoo and seen a bear at the zoo, not even close. Most bears are not even close to the size of polar bears. Polar bears can get up to 11 feet tall. So that's about, think about one story is about 10 feet tall. So, I mean, as big as this room. And weight, the biggest one recorded was a little bit over a ton. So that's, I mean, that's enormous.
Yeah.
So if you ever got to be up close with the polar bear, you would be so surprised about how insanely big this creature is. They are enormous. They're very large, which is really interesting considering that when they're born, they're really, really small. They're way smaller than a human baby when they're born. I think they're only 3 or 4 pounds, something like that. Sorry, wait. Let me back that up. I want to make sure I said this right. They're born at 1 pound. That's right. So they're born at 1 pound. So they are even smaller than, I mean.
Paula Dean puts more butter in her recipes.
It's true. And if you're thinking, well, what do I have to do with a polar bear? I would encourage you to do research, look at the scientific research on never mind. Do some research about global warming and you'll see some things. We will be back tomorrow.